Hey guys, I'm Usually Dave from the Digital Soup Podcast, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Check out all the other podcasts at gonnageek.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
This is the official gonnageek.com show. Here we're a bunch of geeks talking about geeky things. Each week we run down the latest news and happenings in the world of geek. These are your hosts for the show, Steven.
But what if I'm in the mood for a T-Swift story?
Chris.
I've heard the X is going to give it to you.
And SP.
That's how we roll on Gonna Geek on Monday night. We get crazy!
Gonna Geek Productions presents the official gonnageek.com show.
Hello and welcome to episode 226 of the official gonnageek.com show. I am Steven John Drew, and joining me, of course, is Chris Farrell.
No, my name is Pops.
We also have with us, returning after a week away to find himself, Stargate Pioneer.
Hey, we all need a week off every once in a while to find ourselves because when you get crazy every Monday night, you need a week to wind down every once in a while.
Absolutely. So if you're not familiar with the show, here at the gonnageek.com show, we like to talk about the latest happenings in the world of geek. We are going to run down a bunch of the hot news topics, and also we have an extra segment towards the end of the show where we will talk about something special. And this week, Chris has a piece of new gear that you're going to want to hear all about. And hint, he bought it the right time because it went up in price. So check out that story a little bit later in the show. So let's just go ahead and move into our news. All right, so last Sunday, the day that's not today, we record this on Mondays every Monday at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time at Geeks.live. Yesterday, Sunday, was the Super Bowl. That's right, it was the Super Bowl, and there was a lot of ads that happened, some of which said the word Alexa. So if you've got an Amazon Echo device, just so you know, we were trying to avoid saying that trigger word, but we might slip up in this segment. But yes, it was said several times throughout the game because there was a big push by Amazon, and we were wondering, why was our devices not going off? Well, guess what? Chris is going to tell you all about that.
Well, side note, I just realized we could remake the song Bingo to Alexa.
Alexa.
Alexa was her name.
Doesn't work with a Skype lag.
Just said it.
I know. That's just because I love you guys so much. I want your devices to listen. So, fair warning, this is going to be an in-depth discussion on the capabilities of Amazon Voice Services, and I'm sure I'm going to screw up. So please mute your Amazon Voice Services devices for just about 5 minutes here. It keeps me from accidentally setting off all of your devices. So if you watched the Superb Owl game last night, you probably saw that there was a 90-second ad featuring our good friend Alexa, and she lost her voice. And there were a lot of people that subbed in voices for her. Well, during that ad, they said the keyword Alexa 10 times. But if you noticed, none of your Amazon Voice Services devices should have triggered during this time. Why is that? Well, a spokesman from Amazon said, we do alter our Alexa advertisements to minimize Echo devices falsely responding in customers' homes. Well, the folks over at Bloomberg did a little digging into things, and they found a 2014 Amazon patent titled Audible Command Filtering. This described a technique to prevent Alexa from waking up as, quote, part of a broadcast watched by a large population, such as a popular sporting event, end quote. So, they had some theories on how to do this. What were the two theories outlined in this patent? Well, the first calls for transmitting a snippet of a commercial to Echo devices before it airs. Then these devices can compare the live commands to the acoustic fingerprint of the snippet to determine whether the commands are authentic. The second one is a bit more interesting. This tactic describes how to tell how a commercial itself could transmit an inaudible acoustic signal to tell Alexa to ignore its wake word at a level that we as humans might not be able to hear, but perhaps our canine companions do, or our feline companions. That'd be a very interesting thing to figure out.
Huh? Phone's ringing.
Phone's ringing.
Okay, so let me ask you this: why couldn't I hear it? Because I'm a dog. That's what I've been told by many ladies.
Well, I don't think you're related to the species of canines. But
Okay,
you never know, maybe.
fair enough.
So it gets a little more interesting. Bloomberg found out that there was a Reddit user about a year ago by the name of, oh man, I'm not gonna be able to say this properly, Aspha Hacker, who did a little legwork and concluded that, I don't know, ASPHYHACKR.
Oh.
Just
Asfa. Okay.
Well,
I heard that wrong.
It's S-Phi hacker.
I heard that wrong
Okay.
the first time.
we're just gonna call him the Reddit hacker so that I don't keep screwing it up. He found out that Amazon was creatively employing the second technique, this being an inaudible acoustic signal to tell the devices to ignore the wake word. He found out that by running commercials through digital audio editing software, that Alexa ads transmit a weakened level of sound in the upper portion of the audio spectrum, somewhere between 3,000 and 6,000 hertz outside the most sensitive range of human hearing, meaning we can't hear it. The hacker speculated that Amazon could be tipping off Amazon Voice Services devices to ignore certain commands if it detects artificial gaps or bumps in this spectrum. To test his theory, he recorded someone saying Alexa and used a so-called bandstop filter that reduced frequencies just in this high region of the spectrum. When he played back the recording, quote, "My Echo would not wake, even sitting right next to the speakers." So it looks like they're using this second method. It's kind of interesting, but the story's not over. Go ahead.
He could have fried the circuitry by transmitting the wrong frequency.
I guess that is possible also.
It's fair, man. If anybody would know about frying circuitry, it is the director of SNASA.
I've done it enough.
And then finally, Amazon did blog about the topic recently to perhaps shed a little bit of light on it. They credited their acoustic fingerprinting technology that can distinguish between an ad and actual customer utterances, and said that its advertising, engineering, and social teams prepare for major events such as the Superb Owl commercial in order to suppress Amazon devices from responding to it. So basically, they know when a commercial is going to air, they can suppress a lot of things. An example they gave is when the Amazon Voice Services was mentioned on The Tonight Show. Amazon said its cloud servers could detect a match, create an audio fingerprint on the fly, and prevent 80 to 90% of devices from responding. So the always listening is coming into play. They know when commercials are airing, and they're also using this audio frequency we can't hear to be able to prevent the devices from triggering. So they're kind of on top of the ball here, and it solves some of the problems I'd been having early on where my devices seem to randomly trigger. Now, it's not to be unheard of. I have one that sits in my living room. My rear surround sound channel is literally right behind it. So occasionally, if I'm watching a commercial or someone on TV says the keyword Alexa or something that sounds like it, you'll see it light up and it'll spin a second and then it'll turn off immediately thereafter. So they're getting very good at figuring out how to get the devices not to pick up the wake word when it's not you saying it. So the tech behind it and the algorithms and the theories, they're pretty cool. And I saw this article and I really wanted to share it with you guys in the show today.
I will say that I noticed us a couple times it pick up and hang right back up yesterday during the game. I saw it light up and then just shut right back down. So it was great to see that actually working successfully. Now, you know what's really weird is I did the Audacity generate tone between like, I don't know, I think it went up to 6 and you still hear it. So I guess it is quite reduced because apparently, unless Audacity is not generating it, right? Because it was very clear
That's
to
possible.
me. Yeah. Let me ask you this, Stargate Pioneer.
Ask.
Are you going to allow your converted version of the Echo to be filtered out by this? Because I know that you've gone and you've hacked your version to have all the government secrets and whatnot. So I'm wondering if it also is affected by this.
I think you're mistaking my device from your device because I've hacked into your device, but my device is fine.
Well, thanks for telling us all about that there, Chris Farrell. We do sincerely appreciate you telling us why all of our devices were not triggered by you saying the word Alexa only to say the word Alexa 1,000 times. So there you go.
Well, I'm not in their machine learning algorithm. If you can edit the podcast
No.
to put that frequency every time before I say it, you'll save everyone.
No, not happening.
Oh, and just because I can, okay, Google, hey Siri, and all sorts. Oh crap! I just set my phone.
All right. So next up in the news here, we're going to talk a little bit about how there is a new version of the Microsoft Surface. That's right. This past weekend, Microsoft announced a new sort of line to their Surface, and by line, it's just one model, but you know where that's going. That's right. They launched cheaper models of the Surface laptop titled the Surface Book 2. Now, the price point is trying to be sub $1,000. It's currently starting at $799, so that is quite a bit cheaper than what the Surfaces were previously priced at. And now the idea behind this, like I said, is to try to save them a bit of money, but also they're now offering these with a little bit lesser processors. So the cheaper version has a 1.6 Intel Core M3 processor, as opposed to the current line, which has an i5. The Surface Book 2 only launched in November, and the new base model price on that version is $1199 for the 13.5 inch version. So that's quite a difference, $1399 compared to $799. Now, for me personally, I think that Surface has always targeted a higher demographic, a higher cost value. So it's interesting to see that they think they can break into this. But I guess, you know, there's people who are always looking to get Windows machines and whatnot. And so if they can get a Windows tablet / whatever laptop for a little bit cheaper, maybe they can make that business happen. I don't know. It's a little surprising to me.
Well, I think one of the big differences with this lower tier Surface Book 2 is that it does not have the graphics, the GPU in the base, is my understanding. So it depends on your use cases. If you're wanting to do some casual gaming or like video editing and things like that, you might not be better off going with the low end one because you lose that GPU capability or capability to use one, excuse me.
I do think, though, I question whether or not they can make this happen because all of the other vendors who have previously broken into this. But I guess there are people who just know the Surface name now. I'm not sure. I'm lost, Chris. Okay, I genuinely have no idea how to feel about this. I feel like it's a recipe for disaster.
With more and more schools at the middle school and the elementary school, not to mention high school level, going to electronic textbooks or electronic interactive programs in their classrooms, in their learning curriculum, I can see Microsoft wanting to get a cheaper version out there so that the school districts can buy them and maybe at a student educational discount so they can get them to their students to do the same thing. I mean, it's the same thing over and over that has been done for decades that Apple started back with the 2Es, I believe it was, in that if you get the students up front, used to the OS, used to the line, used to the computers and how they work, then when they get older, that's what they will continue to want to get. So I could definitely see it from that standpoint. Now, the other standpoint that I can see it, we were talking about this before the show, is Apple has always had the iPad mini, not always, but it has had the iPad mini line for a while. There's been speculation that the iPad mini line was going to be canceled. However, that has not happened yet. You can still get a new iPad mini 4 right now. And that's the smaller use case, which I actually like. I like the iPad mini a lot more than I like the actual iPad. So this could be Microsoft's attempt to edge into that as well. So there's a lot of different applications that could be good here. The one thing that I have an issue with, just for me personally, I wouldn't want anybody in my family wanting to use this because of the issues that Chris pointed out with the lower use GPU and other technical specifications. So it's a trade-off though. Capability for money.
Yeah.
In all honesty, though, these entry-level Surface devices, they're not bad for traditional student type stuff where you need to do word process, do internet browsing and stuff like that. They're equivalent to the lower end MacBooks and stuff like that. It's just making an easier barrier to entry to get in there. Now, we are not what you would consider standard users. We're power users in often cases. We like our toys. We like to spec things up. So you talk to Steve and me or SP, we're like, psh, no GPU in there. Psh, this M3 processor, I don't want any of that crap. But if you're talking about the guy who's going to college and wants a nice laptop that's going to last him a while, kind of makes sense. And Microsoft's attempt to make the Surface line be equivalent to the MacBook line when it comes to drawing someone's eye and basically being quote unquote a sexy looking computer, they're doing a pretty good job in that regard.
That's an interesting point that you bring up, Chris. The college student that wants a usable computer to get through college. I will submit to you that any computer that a college student buys, laptop, is not going to make it all 4, 5, 6 years through the bachelor's degree. You're going to have to buy at least one more as you go through. I've had this experience with not one, but 2 kids so far, where they get to the 2 or 3 year point, and just because they're lugging that thing around everywhere, because they're basically using it day and night, it just wears out and it needs to be upgraded. Both my kids, one has had a MacBook Pro, the other has had a relatively high-end IBM PC or Windows PC. They both has stopped working after a couple of years. So if they're going to stop working after a couple of years, why would you want to throw $2,000 into one of these things? Why not go a little bit cheaper, make it last a couple of years, and just know you're going to have to buy a new one in a couple of years?
I mean, it's fair. When I was going to college, I went through 2 laptops, might have been 3, I can't remember, but I was not exactly gentle on them at times, and I had the Dell extended warranty, so I didn't care if I was gentle on them because it was the no deductible warranty. If it broke, that was Dell's problem.
So was your nickname in college Gentle Ben?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, no, really, the only time it really broke that was terrible and I couldn't recover from it was the display itself died. There was nothing I did on it. It was just defective, and they had to replace the LCD in my laptop. And the other times it was just more of, it was getting a little dinged up, and I wanted something better. Because, you know, I was an engineering student. We wanted more powerful things. I was writing a bunch of MATLAB code, and older laptop wasn't doing great for that and for a lot of my development.
Another thing that I don't think I told you guys about, but at Christmas time, I went to the Mall of America. Yeah, I know, not the key time to go to the Mall of America, but I did. And in the Mall of America on the first floor, there's an Apple store right across from a Microsoft store. And it was interesting seeing the evolution from last year to this year of what was in the stores, because this year, both stores were very sparsely filled out in their items and the tables and the side displays with actual hardware. It wasn't as packed as it was last year. Now, for the Apple store, they had iPhones galore because, you know, the 8, the 8 Plus, and the 10 had just come out. So they were all over the tables, but you had like 10 versions of the same phone out there. Over on the Microsoft store, they had actually reduced the amount of display space that they had. So it was very much a sparse. It looked like a store going out of business almost, even though they were fully stocked and they had everything that you'd want. It's just a different sort of store because there's no traditional cash registers. They ring you up on their mobile devices right there, and it's just weird. There's no counter.
The real question, though, SP, is did you go to every floor model device and go to gunnageek.com on the browsers and walk away?
I went back to do it.
That's why there's server problems tonight. All right, so that's now you know all about how Microsoft's making a brand new version of the Surface. Let me ask you this, Stargate Pioneer. I've heard of the Falcon 9, but why is it more like Falcon 9?
Yeah, exactly. This was awesome when I saw this. I'm like, they did what? Because like I was out of the office when this whole thing was happening, and I didn't get to see the normal SNASA reports that were going on. So SpaceX pulled one over on SNASA, by the way. So SpaceX actually recovered a rocket body, a first stage of Falcon 9 rocket body that they weren't intending on. So here's what happened. SpaceX is now recovering rockets without even trying. This is great. One of the company's two-stage Falcon 9 rockets successfully launched the GovSat-1 communications satellite to orbit way back on last week, Wednesday, January 31st, from Cape Canaveral. Now, SpaceX usually tries to land the first stages during the liftoffs, either on the drone ship or on terra firma, back in Florida. So the boosters can be reused. But the company didn't do that on this launch. Instead, the first stage came in for a mock touchdown over the open ocean. So in a tweet and in ensuing discussions on Twitter, Elon Musk said this rocket was meant to test very high retro thrust landing in water so it didn't hurt the drone ship. But amazingly, it survived. So they weren't expecting it to survive at all. So they're going to tow it back to shore. I think they actually have to do that underneath maritime salvage law, and the safety of maritime traffic, that sort of stuff. So Musk said that the landing involved three, not one, but three of the first stage's 9 Merlin engines. And the boosters have traditionally only used one. So they were trying to get more thrust in a shorter time period to slow the rocket from very fast to very slow. And it was just such a high risk maneuver that they didn't want to risk damaging the drone ship. And we've seen the drone ship take some big hits before. I think they were expecting like a warhead coming down on it this time and breaking it in half. But yeah, it actually survived. It landed in the water and then it toppled over in the water. And I guess it was floating. I don't know if it's supposed to or not. Haven't looked at the tech specs on that. I guess it works. So they towed it back to shore, I guess. It's all cool, guys. They didn't even try to recover it. It was there.
It's clearly alien technology. Let's not even deny it.
There may or may not have been some foreigners involved.
It may. There's no or not.
In the design on SpaceX staff. I can't speak to his human resources department at all, but we at NASA are friendly, but not that friendly. You know what I'm saying?
Just gonna tell you. So this is SpaceX, right? SpaceX is the name of the company, and as we all know, the documentary titled Jason X happened in space. That's that wonderful movie, Jason X, that happened in space. It was a documentary.
Don't forget, X is going to give it to you.
That's true. So obviously, it's all related. It's all alien stuff. So there you go.
Have you guys heard of Starman, by the way?
No, what's Starman?
Okay, well, first of all, I think it was a movie like back in the 80s or maybe 90s.
Okay.
I'm thinking 80s, though.
Okay.
Yeah, right? Well, you know, Elon Musk is planning on launching his Tesla Roadster later this week, if all goes well, into space. Yeah. So they put an actual driver in the car. His name is Starman.
Is that true?
Yeah, it looks like the Stig, really, in a spacesuit. So it's going to be awesome.
Wow. That's crazy. Interesting. Yeah. Well, anyways, we'll just go ahead and have to find out what all of your secret stories are, because we all know that is actually you. Moving on into our extra news section here. We are going to tell you all about how you might be able to make some money. That's right. If you had yourself one of those wonderful LG phones that had the boot loop problem, you might be entitled for a settlement. That's right. LG did settle the lawsuit on the boot loop for $425 in cash or a $700 rebate towards a new LG project. The LG boot loop issue affected the LG G4, the LG V10, the LG V20, the Nexus 5X, and the LG G5. So this is something that it wasn't all devices, but it was quite a few people who were affected by this. So if you were affected by that, you might want to go ahead and take a look and search that up, because you might be entitled to some money.
So the question is, if you're someone that got burned on that, how much better do you feel to take the $700 off on a new LG phone, or do you just take the straight up cash because you don't have to deal with it again?
You know, that's a great question, and I think that it would depend on the specific user. For me personally, I have seen that the way that the Pixel 2 XL, which was built by LG, has fared compared to the Pixel 2 regular, which was built by HTC, and my confidence is not high with LG at this time.
I don't know, man. That the LG V30 is a sweet phone.
Oh, you know what
It's
else
been on
was
my
a-
list.
The sweet phone, the 5X and the G5 were also pretty sweet, and so was the V20 until they started to boot loop.
Yeah, that was a problem. And remember, if you go through Reddit, you can see a lot of people expressing their displeasure in not always non-profane ways.
Which is why I said I think it depends on the user, because some people will just be like, I'm only looking for a phone for a year, and I think you can roll the dice on that. But I don't know, like that's a lot of phones that saw this problem after a couple of years, and for me, someone who does buy a phone hoping to have it a couple of years, I would be very, very hesitant to go with another LG until they've had a successful run for a couple of years.
See, what I'd do is I'd take the phone and then I would turn around and sell it and make a little extra money and then buy a Pixel.
Yeah, I guess you would, because if you got a $700 phone, you could probably sell it for $600, so you would get a little bit more.
Hell, you could sell it for $500 and it's still profit.
Yeah.
And someone's going to get a great deal on a brand new mint in-box phone. I imagine you'll start seeing phones like this on Swappa and eBay after they start getting their $700 credits.
True. I don't know, like if you're selling at 500, is the time and effort and risk worth that $75? Plus probably taxes. You're probably going to pay taxes on that new phone.
So what I would do is I would take the $700 and then go out and get an iPhone 7. That works great.
You're going to get a 425 and
Wait.
then
You'd only get 425.
425.
The iPhone 7 has a similar issue, guys. Have
What?
you been keeping
Really?
up? Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about that Stargate Pioneer?
Well, I don't know much. I just know as long as we're talking about boot loops, the iPhone 7 apparently has some issues going on right now. And if your phone has entered into one of these boot loops, it will be replaced for free, I guess. That's what I've heard.
We're dealing with such a large technical piece of technology. I know that's amazing way to describe it, that I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that we're starting to see more of these, because every time you do a major update, you're doing the firmware essentially. So you're bound to have this happen, but I am glad that I was not affected by that. I do, however, have a friend who I think was affected by that with the 5X, but somebody, I think he ended up getting a credit. I think Google already gave him something directly, if I remember correctly, from him. But yeah.
A lot of the 5X stuff Google handled because it was all bought through Google's store. And it's honestly why if I buy a Pixel phone again or a Nexus kind of phone, it'll be direct from Google, because their customer support is awesome when stuff goes wrong.
Absolutely. And finally, in our extra news section, we have another piece of information here, don't we, SP?
Yes. Apparently at the Super Bowl, not the Superb Owl, the Super Bowl, Netflix dropped a Cloverfield movie.
What? Is there anybody on this podcast that knows anything about it? Because I don't.
Well, what about it is it had been filming for a while. We just found out this week that there was a code name. I can't remember what it was. It's actually the third Cloverfield movie, and everyone was excited. They were wondering, when's the movie going to come out? Well, if you were watching The Big Game yesterday, Netflix had a 30-second spot where they basically said, hey guys, here's Cloverfield 3. It's going to be on Netflix after the Super Bowl. So people were literally going on Netflix and I want to watch this. And it said, wait for the end of the game. And as soon as the Super Bowl ended, they flipped the switch and the third Cloverfield movie, which Netflix bought from Paramount basically, was streaming directly on Netflix. Pretty cool way to get a lot of eyes on a property that probably wasn't very good based off critic reviews.
Apparently, it's still not very good.
Yeah, apparently it's pretty crappy.
Yeah.
But hey, Netflix pulled a pretty cool move
I did.
and surprised everyone because nobody knew this was coming. So kudos to Netflix for playing a power move.
Is it better than the Crocodile Dundee reboot that was advertised during the Super
Oh, you bite your tongue. I want Hemsworth and Danny McBride to have a bro cop buddy movie.
Okay, so for all of you not familiar with it, there was a joke that it was coming back, but it was actually a Tourism Australia ad. It was pretty fantastic, so you should definitely check that out because it got me. I got that, and I even started saying, "Wow, it's always so weird seeing these Marvel character or Marvel actors in other movies," and then it's like, you got me right where it says it's not a movie. So
You this will be Hemsworth's last role as Thor, last spin as Thor in Infinity War. He's done with the role.
Sure. Just like Chris Evans is done with the role too.
Yeah,
Back up the money track.
Exactly. Absolutely. And remember, by the way, we also all heard years ago that Robert Downey Jr. was done with the Iron Man role. We see where that ended out. Yeah, sure, we're not getting Iron Man movies, but hello, he's still in the major movies as well as he was in Spider-Man. If that doesn't speak volumes about this whole situation, then we know where it's headed. So
Chris Hemsworth is going to be Batman? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. There would be no reason to think otherwise. We are always 100% legit on the GonnaGeek.com show. Chris, earlier today, I had somebody very wise tell me about the Microsoft Surface, and it got me intrigued. What is the Surface all about? I wish that somebody could tell me a little bit more. Do you know of anybody?
Do I know of anybody that knows about the Microsoft Surface? I don't know. There might be one just sitting right here. Might be another one upstairs. And I bought another new toy, which we're going to talk about today too. It is not this toy, which is an original Surface Pro, still running strong, but the battery only goes about 6 hours on it now. But that's neither here nor there. So we all know I like new toys. I like tech. I like things like that. And recently I've come to realize that my laptop that I was using for a lot of my non-podcast related tasks or needing to not sit in my office because in the winter my office is really cold because it's in the basement, my laptop was getting a bit old. It needed replaced. The laptop's about 6 years old. I upgraded it to Windows 10 from Windows 7, and it was doing a pretty good job, but it's getting really slow. It's taking forever to boot up. And once I get to patch Spectre and Meltdown on it, it's going to get hit pretty bad. So I started looking at replacing my laptop with something new. And I started looking at all the different alternatives out there, different Ultrabook level kind of things, because I wanted something that I could take with me, be able to take to the coffee shop or take with me if I'm on travel or something like that, that wasn't going to necessarily be huge, but still had a lot of power. And I went, you know what I really love is my Surface Pro 4 that I'd been using for a lot of stuff, and I still own it, but I no longer use it. It has gone to my fiance to use for a lot of things because her laptop was also shaky. So I went, maybe I should look into something like the Surface Laptop or the Surface Book. So I started looking on the Microsoft Store and I started reading reviews out there, and I was looking at the Surface Laptop at first, but then I looked at the Surface Book and I went, what's the one thing I loved about the Surface? I loved folding it back and using it as a tablet for note taking, and I loved the hybrid tablet-esque nature of it. So I said, maybe I should go and look into the Surface Books. And I found a deal I could not pass up. If you're not familiar with the Microsoft Store, they sell refurbished Surfaces. And yes, I said refurbished. It should make some people's hair stick up on the back of their necks. It's not necessarily a bad thing because it's company refurbished, has an extended warranty. So guys, I pulled the trigger. I picked up a Surface Book. It's the Gen 1 Surface Book with the integrated NVIDIA GPU from the Microsoft Store. And as I went on the site to check and see what the price was now, the price on the exact same thing has gone up $500 in the last month. So
what? That's like Bitcoin.
I bought it the right time. So this Surface Book, let's talk specs because we love technology. We love the gadgets. It's a 256 gigs of storage, 8 gigs of RAM, a 6th gen Intel Core i5 processor, a 1 gigabyte custom NVIDIA GPU in the keyboard base. The display is a 3:2 ratio, 3000 by 2000 pixel, 13.5 inch display. And guys, it's pretty nice to mess around with. So if you want to get into the port side of things, 2 USB 3.0 jacks, a full-size SD card jack, headphone jack, and a mini display port output so that you can hook it into other monitors and things like that. Here's a caveat. If you're looking at the Surface Book 2s, which just dropped recently, that has USB-C in place of the mini display port.
So what you're saying is that it's worse.
It is different. Now, for something comparable that would have been a newer gen processor, I would have been looking at $2,500 to buy. So the price I got mine for, I was okay with it. So
what you're saying is you cheaped out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It became more of a matter of, do I want to spend a bunch of money or do I want to have something that's almost as good that costs me half as much?
So what you're saying is that you don't like Microsoft and that you think Apple's the greatest company in the world.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, Stephen.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
So going back to the Surface Book I got, this Surface Book comes with the Surface Pen. I talked about it before with my Surface Pro conversations a while back. It's a great way to interact with the device. Now, this was a refurbished device strictly from Microsoft. So when I opened up the box, I checked, I pulled off the refurbished sticker. There's not a scratch, not a mark anywhere on the magnesium casing that makes up the Surface Book on either the keyboard side or the display side. No scratches on the display, no dead pixels in it. So it looks to be in good shape. And I wanted to figure out just how much it had been used before. So I went to the Surface Reddit thread and I found out how you could pull the information on the battery cycles associated with the device. So I ran that tool through the command line, found out there had been 2 battery cycles on the tablet portion, which they also call the clipboard. And on the keyboard base, which has its own battery in it, it had 16 cycles. So for a refurbished device, we're not talking about a lot of battery cycles here.
No.
It shouldn't be a problem.
Like, it must have been used and then returned and then turned on again to see what was wrong. Nothing was wrong. You had a device that was used one time.
Yeah.
Who knows? I think the base might have been used more and then swapped out, because one of the things that you can do with any of the Surface Book ones is you could swap bases around. So say if you bought the one without the graphics card, but your buddy had a graphics card and he wasn't paying attention, you could swap them around and no one would ever know. Who knows? Maybe there was just a matter of...
Sounds like somebody did that.
Maybe there was
Maybe.
a problem with the base, so then the whole thing got sent back. So the actual main unit was fine, and then they just took one of their refurbished bases and matched it up. So there you go.
And that's what I'm thinking might have happened. But when I pulled the battery cycle information, I went, wow, this is huge. This has barely been used. And it made sense because when I checked out the device myself, pristine, not a mark on it anywhere. And granted, it'd be tough to mark those up because the magnesium case for them, pretty durable. And guys, it's pretty damn sexy too. You know how everyone talks about the aluminum unibody MacBooks and stuff like that? Yeah, the magnesium surfaces make for a pretty nice looking device also. So let's get into actually using the device, setting it up. Setting it up is easy if you've set up any Windows 10 computer lately. It's exactly the same thing. Log in with your Microsoft account. Everything in your OneDrive is already accessible, and you're pretty much good to go. The Surface line, there's no bloat like you find if you buy a new computer from HP or Dell or something like that. You get a bunch of, here's your free antivirus, here's your Dell certified driver updating device. You spend half your time either blowing away what's on the hard drive to start fresh or trying to uninstall it all. From the box, there is nothing outside of just what Windows 10 provides on there. So I didn't have to worry about uninstalling McAfee or Norton or something like that. It was all just pure Windows 10. So that was a pretty cool experience. And part of the reason I'm like, I'm kind of glad I went this route. But there's a double-edged sword for things. Like with any laptop, I was in patching hell. There were a ton of patches and updates I had to apply. I think I just plugged it in and told it to start updating. I came back 4 or 5 hours later and it was done. It might have gone a lot quicker than that. I literally just set it on a table, told it to do its thing, and came back. And I kid you not, it probably rebooted 5-6 times as it was doing all of the patches and updates. But after that, it's been pretty smooth. It just updates on its own and it's transparent. And it is Windows 10 Pro though, so I can put off any updates I don't like I've done on my podcasting rig here.
So when you got this device, was it like, how far out of date was it? Because I know a lot of times they'll put on, you end up getting a new laptop and they've updated it up to a certain point. Maybe that's a bit of an indication on how long it had been sitting around waiting to be resold.
So I had to start with the Windows 10 Creator Update, the most recent major update that came out. I had to download that and start from there. So that'll give you an idea about how far out of date it was.
Okay.
But it seemed like the drivers were just the baseline drivers from whatever their factory image is. So they were pretty far out of date. So I had to update the BIOS and all of the drivers for the graphics cards and things like that. So I think most of my updates was the Creators Pack and getting all of the drivers. And that's probably why it rebooted so much.
How many times have you gotten a phone, iPhone, Android, doesn't matter, or like an Xbox or something like that? You get it at home and then it has to update for a few hours or at least a cycle. I mean, it happens with any device nowadays. So I don't think that's really a good indication.
It's just more of an observation. And for me, who wanted to start playing with it right away, it was kind of annoying. A pro tip, though, for like the holiday season or birthdays, if you're getting your kid an Xbox or a GameCube, not GameCube, but a Nintendo Switch or a PlayStation or something like that, take it out of the box ahead of time, do the patching and the updating so that you can play almost starting immediately versus waiting for all the setup time pieces
But
to
it
come
did
into
this
play.
last year. So, Chris, let me ask you: with your kids, are they going to be Microsoft, like Xbox kids, or are you going to be PlayStation kids?
They're going to be Linux.
Hard old school on them. I see.
So what else you got to say about this?
So I got the Surface Book, like I said, which means you can detach the display and it becomes a separate keyboard and a separate display. When you detach the display, I think I mentioned it, they call it the clipboard because it is roughly analogous in size to a clipboard that you would carry around. I found myself using it mostly in laptop mode, but I do detach the clipboard from time to time, especially when I'm using OneNote for wedding planning, like I've talked about on this show before, but also when I'm doing note taking for shows like the Starling Tribune. When I'm watching an episode of Arrow, I detach this clipboard, I set it on my lap, and I use the Surface Pen and write out my notes. I like being able to have that flexibility to have either a full-blown laptop or pull it apart, and it's a tablet that I can use. So what's a few things I've learned while using this device? So when the keyboard and the clipboard are connected, the battery draws equally from both. If you weren't aware, there's a battery both in the base station and in the clipboard itself. So when they're connected, they burn just about equally. If you pull them apart, you'll use just obviously the clipboard while it's apart. But when you put them back together, if your clipboard is too much more discharged than the keyboard base station, it's going to use the keyboard until it gets it to about equal battery level again, and then it's equal battery discharge. So it's not like some other devices where it tries to burn through, say, the base station battery first, then starts using the tablet battery. This is equal burn all the time. Microsoft states you'll get about 12 hours of life. I've gotten about 10 to 11 out of it.
That's pretty awesome. You know, your use case that you just described was exactly how I was thinking that I would use a Surface tablet, because that's what I need when I'm watching a TV show for Starling Tribune or Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. I want to be able to sit down and take notes on it. And the two ways that I do that is either through my iPad mini and I'm tapping away, or I get one of the older laptops out and I just throw it up onto one of the collaborative online programs like OneNote or Evernote or Google Drive or something like that. And it doesn't take a lot of horsepower to do that, and it's great, but I just don't need one of those devices right now. But that would be my use case for it.
And that's predominantly what I use it for. And I love being able to take the pen and basically just treat the clipboard like an actual clipboard with pen and paper and just scribble away that way. And it takes a little bit of adjustment to get used to using a stylus on screen, but once you get used to it, it's pretty sweet, guys. It's pretty nice.
You mean you lace it with sugar and you lick it, and that's why it's sweet?
Yeah, I lick it a lot. That's how I scroll, as I pour the sugar and I go "Ugh," and lick the monitor. Just like that.
Suncast, make a gif of that, please. Suncast.
Yeah, there you go,
please.
Suncast. Go ahead and do that. So let's get back into talking about the Surface Book a little bit. I talked about it before. The magnesium case on this, it's pretty durable. It's almost always cool to the touch. The only time I've noticed any heat is when I've been really doing a lot of work on it for a while, either playing like a game on Steam or something like that that causes things to spin up a little bit. Then you'll get a little bit of heat on the back of the tablet. Because remember, for it to operate in tablet purposes, almost all of the brains of this computer are in the clipboard portion. The only other stuff that's in the keyboard base is, in my case, a graphics card and batteries. So all of the heat is going to be in the display. The problem is with all of the guts being in the display, it makes it a little top heavy. So there's a little bit of wobble when you're using it, and they try to mitigate that with what they call the hinge. And if you've seen any photos of the Surface Book, and I left mine upstairs, I meant to grab it, but I was working on something and left it sitting on the table. It has a hinge that kind of unfolds, and it allows you to angle it fairly nicely, and it works better than I thought it would, but there's still wobble to it that supposedly they were able to address in the Surface Book 2, but the demo model I used at Best Buy had pretty much the same wobble to it. It does okay without it being flailing around, but it's not 100% perfect. So if you don't like the fact that it's top heavy, and if you're sitting on your lap and you're typing away really heavily that there might be a slight wobble, you might want to go the laptop route. But to be honest, most laptops I've had have had the exact same problem in the past.
Surface Pros wobble, but they don't fall down.
Yeah, just like Weebles wobble and they don't fall down.
That's right. I'm glad you got the reference. There you go.
So the basic thing here that I've come to learn about this is the Surface Book took all the things I liked about the Surface Pro and combined it with a laptop. So for my purposes, I love it. I've got a full-blown laptop, and when I want it, I have a detachable tablet I can use. Now, the caveat is you can't use any of the type covers or anything like that you would on a Surface Pro, but theoretically, you could detach the clipboard and put a Bluetooth keyboard on it if you wanted to, but why bother? You've already got a fully powered laptop.
Unless you
could
wanted
do that.
a huge gaming, Bluetooth keyboard that with lighted things and Cherry MX Blues and stuff.
You could plug that into the laptop and do it. There are people that have bought the, not the port replicators, but the Surface docking stations and done similar stuff with that because there is a dock you can buy for it. A few other things on this, though, because I know I need to start wrapping things up. I've been talking a lot. One thing I did notice is the laptop has to be powered on in order to dock and undock the clipboard because there's a little hinge inside and little hooks that have to be turned off and on. And if there's no power, it won't do it. And conversely, if your battery is too low on either the keyboard or the clipboard, it will not allow you to undock the devices. And here's the kicker. It will also not allow you to redock them if the battery is too low in the clipboard. You'll have to plug the clipboard in and put a little juice in it so that it can charge back up.
Sounds like a software fix. Like maybe, if your battery is being used too much, that you should be given an indication that it's not going to be used optimally. I mean, I would think.
It will when you start getting the battery down to like 10%. I think it's like the 5% mark or so where you lose the ability to do that. So literally all you have to do is plug it in for a little bit. And that's because there's a mechanical hinge and hook system inside that goes into play to hook hook the keyboard into the clipboard. And if you don't have any power or it's low power, it can't move the actuators to make that work.
Solenoid.
And it's actually, probably the solenoid. And I don't know. One last thing on what I've learned with this. I've talked about it before. Windows Hello is awesome. For those that aren't familiar with it, if you have a camera connected to your computer that can do depth sensing, you can use your face to log in. Windows Hello on this Surface Book I open it and it sees my face, and in less than a second, I am logged in. It is very similar to what you have on the iPhone 10. In fact, Microsoft had this technology in place on Windows phones before Apple did it. Just saying. It works fantastically on the Surface Book, though. I've been pleasantly surprised with how well I liked it. I've only had to put my password in once, and I enrolled with glasses on, and it still recognizes me fairly well with my glasses off because I tried just for S and Gs to see what would happen.
Here's the question about it, though. It's all well and good to work, but does it not work? And what I mean by that is it easy to be tricked?
So far, I have not seen it be able to. Anyone else that has tried to use it has not been recognized, and it would not work if you just held a picture up of me because of the depth sensing camera.
Have you tried with it? You did.
Well, the very nature of the hardware required means it sees light that bounces off my nose and light that bounces off of my glasses and sees that there's a difference there. You'd have to build like a 3D representation of my face to trick it. Similar to what people did to hack the iPhone 10 to get in.
Okay.
That should be easy for us, Stephen. We both have busts of his head just sitting
That's
around.
true.
So we're all
And
good.
then his wedding plans will be destroyed.
So wrapping things up with this, how do I mainly use it right now? Most of the time I'm using it in laptop configuration. I'd say probably 70% of the time. I'd say probably 25% of the time I'm using it with just the clipboard. And then the final 5%, this is an interesting thing you can do. You can undock the display, you can flip it backwards and dock it again and fold it so that the back of your tablet is on top of the keyboard. Mm-hmm. And you basically have the clipboard, but with the battery and performance power of the base station. And it's in tablet mode.
Keyboard that's exposed on the back side.
Correct.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's pretty slick. I like that. I don't use it very often because I haven't had the use case for it. But if you were wanting to do a bunch of notes and stuff like that and wanted to make sure you had the battery power of the base as well as the clipboard, it would make sense. So to sum things up, would I buy it again? Probably, because I like being able to have that combination of both laptop and tablet when I want it. And here's the connection I made. This is similar to the same effort that Google is doing with their Pixel books and Pixel phones. This is Microsoft being able to show off the best of their software on ideal hardware that they're responsible for manufacturing. It's the exact same premise that Google's been doing with the Pixel Book and Pixel line of things. And to be fair, though, they didn't have it all right when the Surface Book 1 first launched. There were a lot of driver issues and early glitches. Those all seem to have been fixed now, but if you go and read some of the original reviews of the Surface Book when it came out, there was a lot of blue screen of death issues that took about 2 or 3 months to get ironed out because I think they rushed it out a little bit. And then finally, you also get a little over a 1-year warranty on this. So if something happens to it, you just take it to your Microsoft store or you hit up Microsoft support and be like, hey guys, what's going on with this? And if you're really concerned about things, you can do what is the Microsoft Complete Care warranty, which I think is $250 for a Surface, which basically is that accidental damage, anything happens to it, you take it into a store, you pay the deductible, and you walk out with a brand new one.
So before you were talking about percentages of use case, what percentage in your use case are you using the Surface Book while you're driving?
0%.
Mm-hmm. I'll bet you it monitors that.
What percentage of what you just said was a lie?
0%.
And what
I've got a
percentage
cell
of what
phone,
you just
guys.
said now? No, sorry.
I just hook my cell phone up right in front of my eyes, and I drive around the cell phone when I'm not watching Netflix.
Well, see, I'm rarely ever seen using my VR goggles in my house because they just stay in my car because that's where I use them the most.
Why not?
That makes sense.
Where are you driving? I don't know.
All right, so let me ask you this. Overall, Chris, sum it up for me. What is your biggest assessment, biggest win, biggest disappointment about this?
Biggest disappointment is even the refurb, not exactly cheap. It's a pricey setup. Even with the new versions that Steven was talking about, you're paying a little bit of a premium to get Microsoft's idealized version, how to use Windows on the optimal hardware. The best thing is it's been so damn easy to get set up and use, and it's just fit into my workflow on things really nicely. And I don't miss my old laptop, and it makes me realize how much carrying around that old behemoth was a pain because the hardware and the software combination, it's just slick as heck, guys. They've done a great job in making a good user experience. So yeah, I would recommend it if it fits what your use case is for an Ultrabook. If you're not worried about having a detachable screen and things like that, I wouldn't look at the Surface Book. I would look at, say, the Surface Laptop, or I would look at some of the offerings from HP or Dell or things like that. Now, caveat, remember, HP and Dell is going to put their own bloatware on there. Microsoft does not on the Surface line.
I said that I only had one more question, but I do have one final question. How awesome is it to dance with? Because anytime I hear about Surface, I just think back to their first ever campaign for the Surface, which was dancing.
The clicking.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so I hope that you've at least given it a shot, especially if it's going to be there at your wedding.
It's okay to dance with. I mean, granted, this is just a Surface Pro Gen 1, but it's only okay.
For you who are listening on the audio side of things, Chris is dancing with his Surface right now, by the way. He is dancing
with my Surface.
Trying to.
Dude, I ain't got no moves.
Well, thank you very much for sharing with us there, Chris Farrell. We do sincerely appreciate you running through that and, telling us all of the reasons why Windows is worse than Apple.
Well, no, I didn't want to get into fanboy wars. Damn you, Steven.
All right, well, that's going to take us towards the end of the show. Before we wrap up, we'll just remind you that we are part of the Gonna Geek Network, and also on the Gonna Geek Network is a bunch of awesome geeky podcasts. You can always check those out over at gonnageek.com. We have a ton of awesome fun shows there, and if you're ever looking for a new podcast that is geeky, you head on over to gonnageeknetwork.com and take a look around, because you might just find something there that you like. And also, if you do like something, I am from the bottom of my heart genuinely asking you to please email that podcast, because it's always important, because most of us are hobbyists over on the Gonna Geek Network. So fan interaction is really helpful. It just keeps those wheels spinning, keeps the momentum moving forward. And so please do reach out and tell that podcast how much you do like them. But Chris, anything that you would like to plug or promote?
Make sure you guys head on over to geeks.live. Even when we're not streaming there's a ton of other live content on the network. We've got streaming shows throughout the week. And if you head on over to geeks.live, there's a nice calendar at the bottom of the page that tells you when the next live show is streaming. But hey, worst comes to worst, we're always replaying the old content there. So you can catch any of the shows you may have missed either on the live page or by heading on over to youtube.com/GonnaGeek.
Awesome. SP?
Got two things. First of all, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to my deputy SNASA director, Suncast, for filling the seat in last week. I didn't get to catch a lot of the show because I was indeed traveling. Might or might not have been in this multiverse. I don't know. I can't divulge those secrets, but thank you very much, Suncast. It was a short notice thing, and thank you very much for doing that. And also, there's a couple of important things coming up. One has happened after this has been produced, and that is hopefully the Falcon 9 Heavy launch. I'll be talking about that in the future. But the other thing, the Olympics start. Like if Steven drops this on Thursday, the Olympics start the next day. It's the Winter Olympics. This is the Olympics of the Canadians. You got curling, you've got hockey, you've got figure skating, you've got a bunch of fun stuff. And it's all tape delayed now because it's like in Korea and there's like, I don't know, 16-hour time difference. So if you want to know who wins before you actually watch it, you can figure that out. And if you don't want to, just stay off of social media for 2 weeks and watch NBC at night, because that's where it is on the States. I have no idea where it's being broadcast up in Canada, and I have no idea in the Southern Hemisphere if it's even being broadcast because it's summer down there. It's not winter.
Sorry, I tuned out as soon as I heard the word Olympics. Are we done? Is that done?
You know, the Olympics were like, I don't know, 15 miles from your house a few years ago.
That's true. It is true. That's the only time that I've ever really been truly excited about them. Awesome. So that is going to take us towards the end of the show for episode number 226 of the official GonnaGeek.com show. I'm Stephen John Drew. This still isn't the final outro music. Still looking. And by the way, as of tonight, I'm off of Instagram.
And I'm SP saying it is good to be back, and I look forward to seeing you all next week during the Olympics.
I'm Chris Farrell, and Steven calls me Pops.
SP don't like Facebook. Steven don't like Instagram. Bye.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or a thumbs up on YouTube. You can always join us for our live recording sessions, which stream Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern at www.geeks.live. And remember, you can find our full back catalog at GonnaGeek.com/show. If you're itching for more geeky content, check out other shows on GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Voice work was by Emily Prokop of the Story Behind podcast. That's it for this episode. We hope to see you back again next week.